So when you think about what billionaires are buying, what comes to mind? You probably picture the private jets, the super yachts, the sprawling mansions in Monaco. That's the story the financial media just loves to push. But what if I told you that whole story is just a distraction? A bit of smoke and mirrors, that while everyone's watching their very public right hand, their left hand is quietly, methodically accumulating the real assets that are going to matter for the next 50 years. I mean, think about the public playbook, the stuff everyone talks about. Gold hits a new high, and bam, the story is that the hedge funds are all piling in. Bitcoin surges, and suddenly every billionaire is diversifying into crypto. This is the surface level story, the one everyone thinks they have figured out. But here's the thing. While the media and most of the market are obsessing over these assets, the really smart money has already moved on. They are systematically buying up things you've probably never, ever considered as investments. See, they're not just playing the game anymore. They're positioning for a world where our current financial system might not even exist in the same way. And they're doing it by acquiring what I've started to call the 3 pillars of survival. Assets that are real, essential, and completely irreplaceable. All right, so the first asset is going to sound almost boring. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it such a brilliant move. We are talking about farmland, but not just any farmland. There's a very specific twist. And the person who perfectly illustrates this strategy is Bill Gates. As of 2025, he is America's single largest private owner of farmland, with something around 275,000 acres. To put that in perspective, that's an area roughly the size of Hong Kong. But listen, it's not the amount of land that's the real story here. It's the type of land. You see, there is a clear pattern to what he's buying. He isn't just buying up random dirt. He is securing future food production capacity. Just look at the key elements: irreplaceable topsoil, guaranteed access to water from major rivers and aquifers, and climates with really long growing seasons. This isn't about making a profit farming next quarter. This is about controlling food production if or when global systems start to break down. And that brings us right to the second pillar, which is often tied to the farmland, but is also an incredibly powerful asset all on its own: water rights. Think about it. You can live without oil, you can live without gold, you absolutely cannot live without water. Now here's something that most people just don't realize. In many places, like the American West, for example, you can own 1,000 acres of land but have zero legal right to the water that's flowing right through it. That right can be bought and sold completely separately from the land. It's a separate asset. And that, right there, is the entire strategy. As things like climate change and population growth make water more and more scarce, billionaires and Wall Street firms are quietly buying up these senior water rights. They know they're sitting on what is basically a liquid gold mine for the 21st century. Okay, so we've got control over food production and we've got control over water. But what about hedging against pure chaos itself? Well, that brings us to the third and by far the most obscure asset: a sophisticated financial instrument called a catastrophe bond, or a cat bond for short. Okay, here's the quick and dirty on how this works. Let's say an insurance company needs to cover potential losses from a major Florida hurricane. They issue a bond to investors. Now, those investors get paid a very, very high interest rate for taking on that specific risk. If the hurricane doesn't happen, boom, they get all their money back plus that huge premium. If it does happen, they lose their principal. You are literally betting on the weather. So why on earth would you take that risk? Well, just look at these returns. In 2024, cat bonds returned an average of 17.4%, absolutely crushing the stock market. But the real genius, the masterstroke, is this: their performance is completely uncorrelated with the economy. A stock market crash doesn't cause an earthquake. That, my friends, is true diversification. So why these 3 things specifically? Farmland, water, disaster risk. What is the common thread here? Well, it's all part of a much larger, grand strategy to navigate what they clearly see as growing systemic risk in our world. You have to understand, there are really 2 financial worlds operating at the same time. There's the public system, stocks, bonds, ETFs. It's all interconnected, it's fragile, it's vulnerable. When one part fails, the whole thing can come crashing down. But then there's the real system, the world of hard assets and uncorrelated risk, based on physical, non-negotiable human needs. It's designed to hold its value when the public system breaks. And this just sums it up perfectly. Let's run down the checklist. Are these assets scarce? Yep, you can't print more prime farmland. Are they essential? Yes, people will always need food and water. Are they inflation-proof and uncorrelated with whatever the stock market's doing? Absolutely. They check every single box for a wealth preservation strategy in a really volatile world. And look, this isn't some new, radical idea. History shows us that during periods when great empires start to decline, the smartest money always moves into real, tangible assets. Rome fell after destroying its own currency. The British Empire was financially hollowed out by its own ally. The USSR just collapsed under its own economic weight. The pattern is about recognizing when a system is becoming unstable and getting ready for the transition. So the most crucial point to get here is this. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a civilization-level hedge. It is not about making more money. It is about making sure your wealth survives a fundamental reset of the entire system. This quote really just gets to the absolute heart of it. They are positioning themselves for a future where traditional financial assets, your stocks, your bonds, even cash that's denominated in a failing currency, might not be worth the paper they're printed on. And on that day, the person who controls food, water, and risk, that is the person who holds the real power, the real value. Now, to be perfectly clear, this isn't me giving you financial advice. Not at all. This is about recognizing a pattern of behavior among some of the world's most sophisticated investors. They are moving their capital out of the system that everyone knows and into the real, physical resources that underpin civilization itself. The ultra-wealthy are preparing for a world of scarcity by acquiring the things that simply cannot be printed. Farmland with water, the rights to that water, and uncorrelated disaster risk. The pattern is visible, the trend is clear. The only question is, now that you see it too, what are you going to do?